Welcome to the ChronCast, a division of the Chronicle and IMI. We hope you'll enjoy today's podcast episode, and if you do, please be sure to leave a like and share it around. Also, be sure to follow us in our social medias, which will be linked in the description box below. Hey everyone, welcome to the ChronCast. I'm your host, Aditya Thiyag. I'm joined today by my co-host, Lydia Lysko. Lydia, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing tired. I'm doing very tired right now. But that's mostly because I've been focusing all my brain power instead of my schoolwork into doing Wordle. You heard of it?
Oh my gosh. I literally have gotten just so addicted.
Yeah.
Like every day I'm like, have you done the Wordle yet? I'm like, don't spoil it for me. I haven't done it yet. I'm like, don't do it.
Yeah, so chances are, if you're watching this, you do know what Wordle is. But really quickly, for people who don't know what it is, Lydia, do you want to provide like a brief breakdown of what it is?
I can try.
Okay.
So, the Wordle is this game where you have 6 tries to guess a 5-letter word. And every time you get a letter right, it turns green. Every time you get a letter wrong, it is gray. And yellow letters are the right letters, but they're in the wrong spot. And you have 6 tries to guess the correct word, and each day it's a new word.
Yeah, and the way you basically share whether or not you got the word or not is essentially you can either post on Instagram or Twitter, you can text it to people, like how many, like if it's a 5-letter word and it took you like 4 tries, you would show like how many tries it took you, and then you would put like gray boxes for letters that you guessed incorrectly, and then yellow for the ones that were correct but not in the right spot, and then eventually you get like a row of 5 green letters, because that would signify like, hey, you completed the word. And it sounds like really straightforward, and that's kind of the kick of it. It was originally developed, I think, in England, but it has recently been taken over by the New York Times. And there's only one every 24 hours released on the official Wordle website. So I want to ask you, what personally got you into Wordle?
I just saw a bunch of my friends doing it, and I was just like, I'm like, oh, what is this? And they were like, oh, it's the Wordle. I'm like, what's that? And then they showed me what it is, and I'm like, that's so easy. And then I started it, and now I just get so upset. I cannot physically think of words that are 5 letters. Like, yeah. It's so hard. And I'll be like looking around, I'll be like, oh, are there some 5-letter words? Because you have to like start off with a good guess, right? Because you don't want to do double letters until like you're absolutely sure there is one. You want to get as many letters as there are possible so you can eliminate those options. And I just can't. Like every word I think I'm like is baby. I'm like, that's 4 letters. I'm like, it's hard. Yeah. But it's so addicting once you get started. You're like, oh my gosh, I did the Wordle today. And you just get so proud of yourself.
And I think for me, it's interesting that you brought up your friends, because like for me, I knew that some of my friends were doing it, but the way I got into it is I saw those like boxes on Twitter with no context. Like there would be like rows of just gray boxes and green boxes and yellow. I was like, oh my god, what is this? And then I ended up Googling it. I was like, hey, what are these mysterious boxes? And then I found out like, hey, it's the Wordle. But yeah, that's how I ended up finding out about Wordle. And I've also been fairly addicted. I'll find myself like staying up, not specifically for the Wordle, but I'll look at my phone and I'll see it hits midnight, and one of the first things I'll think of is, hey, oh my gosh, there's a new Wordle out, because it comes out every single day at midnight. And I think my favorite aspect about it is like just the way I'm able to talk to all of my friends about it, because like whenever I say things like, oh my gosh, like if you hear someone saying things like, I can't believe I missed it, I was so close, like people automatically realize like, hey, that's a Wordle. Like, and then it's almost like you have this sort of shared bond with someone you might not even know that well, because you guys are just doing this thing that you have in common with each other.
I'll be like doing the Wordle in like the middle of my English class, and I'm like, okay, give me a 5-letter word, and people like from all of their tables, I'm like, oh my god, are you doing the Wordle? And I'll be like, yeah. I'm like, don't tell me what it is, because I'm it's a really cool way because everyone's like, oh my gosh, like I've already done the Wordle, and I'm like, don't tell me what it is, I need to figure it out. Then they're like, oh, I'll give you a hint, and I'm like, please.
I remember even in our advanced production lab class, like for MBC, like you and I sit next to each other, and right next to it is like a really fantastic video editor on our team. An animator on our team, and he was doing the Wordle on like the big Mac screen, and then you were just like, no, we can't.
I was just covering my eyes, and I was just like, I'm like, I can't see what it is, I haven't done it yet. That's probably on me for waiting until like 3 p.m. to doing the Wordle every day, but you know, I just need time to like process.
Yeah. I think what's really interesting is just seeing the discourse over, like, if it was a particularly difficult Wordle, like, do you remember the one where it was like swill?
Oh my gosh, no, I remember the one when it was like tacit.
Tacit?
Literally, fights were about to break out over tacit. It was ridiculous, because everyone's like, it's not a word. They're like, it's T-A-C-E-T. And I was like, but it's T-A-C-I-T. Because like, everyone like tried a bunch of different letters, and that's where I know so many of my friends like got tripped up, because they just kept on guessing random letters, and they just like, you didn't get the Wordle today. And I'm like, just get good.
I think what's interesting though is words like swill, like tacit, and then the one for today, which we are not going to spoil.
Just tell me what it is.
Well, I literally helped you with it. Look, I don't want to spoil it because like when this comes out, like that Wordle will still be relevant. But if you've played the Wordle for today, you'll definitely know what I'm talking about. It was definitely one that was more influenced by like British slang rather than traditionally like what we're used to talking about. Like no one's using the word swill or tacit in their everyday conversations.
No, I remember trove also.
That was yesterday's, right?
I think so. Trove tripped up so many people. And they're like, that's not a word.
And the thing I thought of was like Lord of the Rings, because like treasure troves.
Yeah, that's the hint you gave me. No, it's just interesting because so many people who I like have never talked to, like you were saying earlier, are like doing the Wordle, and they're like giving me hints because I can't do it. And they're like, oh my gosh, they're like, it wasn't that hard. And I'm like, I can't process words, okay?
It's so funny to see, like, what people get tripped up on. Because sometimes it'll be the simplest words and they'll just be overthinking it. Like, I remember once the word was like shake, and my friend was like, dude, I put in quake, I put in this, what is it? I'm like, what does a quake cause? And he's like, oh my god, you've got to be kidding me. Like, what does it do? So it's really cool to see like how it's different depending upon the person. Like, they get tripped up on different things.
Yeah, I know for me personally, I just have a hard time like thinking of a word to start. Because like once I get like 3 or like 2 or 3 letters, I'm like, okay, like it's this word. But like I just can't think of 5-letter words.
Gotcha. I remember one of my friends told me that like the ideal word to start with is adieu, like A-D-E-I-U, like the French word.
Oh.
Because it has A-E-I-N-U, which it has like multiple vowels, so that way, like even if like all of those are wrong, you know it has to be either like O or Y. O or Y needs to be in the word.
Yeah, no, that's really smart.
Yeah, so to anyone watching that also has a hard time picking what word to start with, adieu, you can't go wrong with.
No, that's genius. How am I never... Okay, well, I sometimes I'm like, it can only be like English words,
yeah.
But then it's like, that does have like all the... Your friend is so big brain. Like, honestly, I just don't know how. No, and then sometimes when people have like already got it and you're like struggling, they're like, it was so easy. They're like, I got it in 2 tries, and I'm like, okay. But whenever I get it in like 2 tries, like I got aroma on my second try. I literally like flipped the door. I was like, let's go. I posted it on my story. I was like,
remember I
2
saw
tries.
It,
yeah.
I remember one that really got me as well. It was like a common... The thing with Wordle that I think is really funny is that it will use words that like you definitely have in your vocabulary. Like some of them like swell and tacit and stuff, like it's not something you'll use. But there are certain words that like it'll be in your vocabulary and you'll use it, but you'll feel so stupid because like just having letters like L. So I remember once the word was elder, and it had like L and then R at the end. People were so confused. They were like, oh my gosh, what's it gonna be?
What are these words?
Yeah, and it's especially tricky because some words use a letter more than once, right? And that's when it gets
like
tricky.
Aroma.
Like aroma, like elder even. So even if you have E at the very beginning, like it could still be used later in the word. And that definitely trips people up because they're so focused on like, oh, we can only have this particular letter once.
Yeah, what also trips people up, I don't know if you said this, was like very basic words.
Like shake,
And
yeah.
then other. I noticed
Other, yeah.
No, but one thing I have to say is when people spoil the Wordle for me, I am not happy. I was scrolling through my Instagram stories and I looked and someone posted the other, like the Wordle other. I was like, no, you can't do the Wordle now. After a certain time, you gotta like post it. Like after like 7 o'clock.
But you also posted the Wordle.
After 7.
No, but that's why they do the little block things. That's why I think like posting like the gray squares, like just so you can show like how many tries it got to, like it took you without making it obvious. I think that was a really clever way of like people being like, hey, this is how many tries.
Yeah, but you see, I am not this smart.
What's one reason why you think, or like what do you think is a reason that Wordle's gotten so big right now?
Right now? Probably just because it's just fun. Like, I don't think people really, like, recognized it until, like, the New York Times started putting it in their thing. So I think maybe just, like, one day someone just started doing it, and they're like, this is fun, do it. And then now everyone's like, oh my gosh, Wordle.
Yeah.
Right? It's something to, like, that you have to, like, check in every day with, like, your friends. So, like, if you haven't, like, talked to your friend all day, you can be like, hey, have you done the Wordle? So, like, I think it's a way people are just, like, using it to, like, interact with each other. That's making it so popular right now. And then just wanting to have fun in a time of like winter, cold.
Yeah, and I definitely agree with you. Like a reason that I think that Wordle has gotten so big, it's for a couple of reasons. The first is it's extremely straightforward to the point where anyone can just pick it up and have a good time with it. It's not anything overtly complex. So, like, anyone with access to an internet browser can essentially just play Wordle. And second, I definitely agree with the social interconnectivity aspect. Because just seeing people argue about it on Twitter or doing it in class or complaining about it in class and having a bunch of people rush over to be like, oh my gosh, I agree, or like, no, I found that really easy. Just, it's an easy way to start conversation, easy way to keep conversation, and it's just a fun way to connect with the people around you.
Exactly. And if you need something to kill time, like do the Wordle. Like let's say you're just sitting inside and you're like, oh, I haven't done this, or like a bunch of my friends are talking about it. You can just like sit down, type in Wordle, and it's the first thing that shows up. And if you're like me, you'll spend like 20 minutes trying to figure out what the Wordle is because you just do not know.
And if you're like me, you'll probably do it in 2. It doesn't matter if you don't get the word. I don't have the patience. I'll just guess a bunch of random words.
If I don't get it by like 5, I'm like, okay, I'm like I don't need that on my record.
Well, that's all the time we have for you guys today on this episode of the ChronCast. Lydia, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me. This was so much fun.
Yeah.
I hope I can come back.
Of course. And I know in general, this was a shorter ChronCast episode. I'm trying to experiment with like different time lengths because I know with something like the No Way Home review that I did recently, like that is something that deserved like an hour-long full explanation. But with something like Wordle, we feel, Lydia and I both feel that like we want to make sure we're not dragging out the topic of conversation for as long as humanly possible, but just the right amount of time so you guys are staying engaged. So if you do have thoughts on it, if you would prefer it to be longer, if you would prefer it to be shorter, please contact us on our social medias, which will be linked in the description box below, or feel free to leave a comment. That's a really good way of giving us feedback. I'm Aditya Thiyag, this has been the ChronCast, and I'm signing off. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the ChronCast. If you enjoyed this episode and want to be notified when our next episode goes live, please be sure to follow us on all of our social medias as well as hitting the subscribe button. In addition, if you want to check out our other podcast, The Interview by Alex Daracel, a link will be provided in the description box below. We hope you'll choose to join us again on the next episode.